There are seasons in life when you wake up already tired. Not because you did not rest, but because your heart stayed awake long after your body fell asleep. You did everything you were supposed to do. You went to bed, turned the lights off, and tried to quiet your thoughts. Somewhere beneath the surface, your mind kept circling questions that do not have neat answers. You move through your days responsibly. You show up and handle what is required of you. You return messages, keep commitments, and manage life the way grown adults do. Yet an undercurrent remains, a quiet awareness that something important is unresolved, something is unfinished, or something is waiting. It comes from holding a dream while living in a reality that does not yet resemble it. It comes from sensing that your life is meant to move in a particular direction, even while circumstances remain stubbornly still. It carries the weight of knowing without seeing, believing without evidence, and hoping without a calendar. Dreams do that. They change you before they change anything else. Once a dream takes hold, time feels different. Days stretch. Waiting feels heavier. Silence grows louder. You become acutely aware of the gap between what you sense is possible and what is currently visible. That gap can feel unsettling, not because it is empty, but because it is charged with meaning. Scripture treats that space seriously. In the Bible, dreams are never treated as decorative ideas or inspirational thoughts. When a dream appears, it often marks the beginning of disruption rather than comfort. Dreams awaken desire, but they also introduce tension. They call something forward before it is ready to arrive. They expose the distance between who you are now and who you will need to become. That distance is where many people lose heart, not because the dream was wrong, but because the meantime lasts longer than expected and offers very little reassurance. There is a story in Scripture about a young man who grew up with a deep sense that his life was meant for something more. He was not born into power, and he did not begin with influence or authority. He came from a complicated family marked by favoritism, rivalry, and unspoken resentment. Yet early in his life, he sensed that his future would not resemble his present. Scripture remembers him by the name Joseph. Joseph did not ask for his dream. It came to him before he knew what to do with it. Like many people who receive clarity before maturity, he shared it too soon and without understanding the cost. The dream stirred jealousy. It disrupted relationships. It exposed fault lines that were already present but could no longer be ignored. Dreams have a way of doing that. They reveal what is fragile, long before anything is repaired. Joseph did not ask for his dream. It came to him before he knew what to do with it. And like many people who receive clarity before maturity, he shared it too soon, without understanding the cost. That dream stirred jealousy. It disrupted relationships. It exposed fault lines that were already present but now impossible to ignore. Joseph's dream did not elevate him initially. It complicated his life. It made him vulnerable and placed him at odds with people he depended on. Then, almost abruptly, his life took a turn that looked nothing like progress or divine favor. He was betrayed and removed from everything familiar. He was placed into circumstances he did not choose and could not control. The dream did not disappear, but it went underground, buried beneath responsibility, survival, and long stretches of silence. This is where dreams begin to jack people up. Once you have seen something, once you have sensed direction or calling, you cannot pretend you never did. But the world does not rearrange itself simply because you received clarity. Life continues. Bills remain due, responsibilities persist. You still have to live in environments that feel disconnected from the future you sense forming. This is the meantime. The meantime is not dramatic. It is repetitive and ordinary. It is waking up and doing what needs to be done, without knowing when the next chapter will begin. It is holding hope quietly while managing disappointment responsibly. It is learning how to keep your heart open without becoming brittle. Waiting enters here. Waiting is one of the most common experiences described in Scripture, and one of the least understood. It is often framed as passive endurance, as though the only requirement is patience. Scripture presents it differently. Waiting is active. It involves discernment, integrity, restraint, and growth. It shapes posture. It reveals motives. It forms character quietly, without spectacle. Joseph did not move from dream to fulfillment in a straight line. He moved through confinement, obscurity, and responsibility that did not match the dream he carried. There were years when the only evidence of his future was the dream itself, not the life he was living. Scripture tells his story in chapters, but those chapters contained ordinary days. They were filled with repeated tasks, familiar routines, and choices that did not feel heroic. Nothing about those days suggested momentum, yet each one required it. Imagine carrying a sense of destiny while doing work that feels invisible. Imagine trusting that something meaningful is forming while your environment offers no confirmation. Scripture does not rush through these moments because they are where formation takes place. Waiting presses on the inner life. It introduces questions that do not demand quick answers but require endurance. It exposes impatience and surfaces fear. It reveals how much of our confidence is tied to outcomes rather than alignment. This is where encouragement matters most. That encouragement should not rush you toward resolution. It should help you stay present where you are. It should remind you that the meantime is not wasted space. It is meaningful ground. Joseph waited while remaining engaged with what was in front of him. He did not withdraw responsibility because fulfillment had not arrived. He did not disengage from his surroundings or blame God for the delay. He showed up where he was and remained faithful to the work placed in front of him. That matters, because not every delay is imposed by God. Some delays are shaped by us. Sometimes clarity arrives before capacity. Sometimes the dream outpaces the discipline required to sustain it. Waiting has a way of revealing these gaps without announcing them. The meantime invites honesty. It asks you to notice where impatience shows up in small ways. It invites you to pay attention to where you rush decisions, withdraw effort, or quietly settle for less than what you know you are capable of carrying. Joseph's waiting was not empty time. It was formative time. He learned how to lead before he had authority. He learned how to manage responsibility before it came with recognition. He learned restraint in places where power was absent. These lessons were necessary, not optional. Waiting exposes patterns. It brings to the surface tendencies we would rather ignore. It confronts assumptions about readiness. It reveals whether we are willing to grow quietly or only when progress is visible. There is a particular pressure that builds when waiting lasts longer than expected. You may fall prey to the pressure to reinterpret the dream, the pressure to shrink the vision to make others feel good about themselves, or the pressure to settle for something smaller simply to regain a sense of movement. This is where many people try to escape. Scripture does not shame this impulse, but it moving too quickly can cost clarity. Encouragement in the meantime does not tell you to hurry, does show its consequences. Moving too quickly can cost clarity. Encouragement in the meantime does not tell you to, it reminds you to stay aligned. It invites you to tend to what is within reach, develop skill, deepen wisdom, and to grow emotional capacity. To strengthen discernment. Joseph's story does not turn because he forces change. It turns because the season completes its work. What looked like stagnation was alignment taking place beneath the surface. What felt like silence was preparation unfolding quietly. When the moment finally arrived, it arrived suddenly. But it was not sudden to God. Years of unseen formation met opportunity precisely. This is where waiting reveals its purpose. Patience is not passive endurance. It is sustained alignment. It is remaining faithful to growth while trusting timing beyond your control. It is allowing the dream to shape you before it positions you. Fulfillment, when it comes, often comes fast. The waiting prepares you to move wisely when momentum appears. Without that preparation, fulfillment can overwhelm instead of elevate. Joseph stepped into responsibility carrying more than authority. He carried discernment shaped by restraint. He carried wisdom formed in silence. The delay ensured that fulfillment did not undo him. Waiting also clarifies desire. It separates ego from calling. It distinguishes what you want from what you are prepared to sustain. Some dreams need time not because they are wrong, but because they are heavy. Scripture shows that God works in seasons. Some seasons reveal, others root. Both matter. Not every chapter brings understanding while you are living it. Some chapters make sense only later. Dreams jack people up because they disrupt comfort and expose capacity gaps. They force growth. They demand participation. They require responsibility alongside faith. The question is not whether the dream was real. The question is whether you are willing to be shaped by it. If your life feels quiet right now, let it be purposeful. If it feels slow, let it be strengthening. Growth is not always loud. Preparation is not always visible. Waiting does not mean nothing is happening. It means something important is happening quietly. The story is still unfolding. What feels unfinished is often still being shaped. Responsibility remains active. Growth remains necessary. Timing remains deliberate. Nothing entrusted to God is forgotten. Nothing surrendered to formation is wasted. And when fulfillment arrives, it meets you as you are. How you wait in the meantime matters. What most people do not realize is that the meantime has its own work to do. It is not simply the space between chapters. It is the place where you learn how to live without rushing your soul, discover how to stay open without becoming naive, and where you practice faithfulness without applause. The meantime asks you to become honest with yourself in quiet ways. Honest about what you expect. Honest about what you fear. Honest about how disappointment has shaped your posture. These are not questions that demand immediate answers. They ask for attention. They ask you to notice what rises up when nothing seems to be happening. Some days, encouragement in the meantime looks like remembering why you started. Other days, it looks like letting go of the version of the dream you were never meant to carry. Both are forms of growth. Waiting well does not mean pretending you are fine when you are not. It means learning how to stay present without numbing out or hardening your heart. It means allowing hope to breathe without forcing it to perform. It means giving yourself permission to move at the pace of formation instead of the pace of comparison. Joseph did not have a manual for his waiting. He did not know how long it would last or how it would resolve. What he had was the next right thing in front of him. He chose to remain faithful there. That choice, repeated quietly over time, became the foundation for everything that followed. This is where encouragement becomes practical. You do not need to solve the entire future while you wait. You only need to tend to what is within reach. The conversation you are avoiding. The skill you keep postponing. The habit you know would strengthen you if you committed to it. Growth in the meantime often happens through small, unglamorous choices that add up quietly. Waiting can make you restless, and restlessness can push you toward decisions that feel productive but leave you depleted. Encouragement steadies you. It reminds you that movement is not always progress, and stillness is not always stagnation. There will be moments when you question whether the dream is still worth holding. Moments when you wonder if it would be easier to let it go entirely. Scripture does not condemn these moments. It acknowledges them. Doubt is often a sign that something meaningful is at stake. Encouragement in those moments does not rush you toward answers. It helps you stay curious instead of cynical. It invites you to ask better questions. Not, why hasn't this happened yet? But, what is being shaped in me right now? The meantime also teaches you how to hold tension without collapsing into extremes. Without becoming bitter. Without becoming passive. Without turning hope into pressure. This balance is learned slowly, through lived experience. Joseph's story reminds us that waiting does not mean isolation. Even in obscurity, relationship and responsibility remained. He stayed engaged with life as it was, not as he wished it to be. That engagement mattered. Encouragement sometimes sounds like permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to feel disappointed without shame. Permission to acknowledge longing without letting it define you. Waiting invites you to reorient your inner life. To notice where anxiety has taken the lead. To practice trust not as a feeling, but as a posture. Trust expressed through steadiness, through consistency, through quiet resilience. There is a maturity that only forms when outcomes are delayed. A depth that cannot be rushed. A steadiness that comes from learning how to live without constant reassurance. This maturity is rarely visible, but it is deeply influential. When fulfillment eventually arrives, it often reveals what the meantime has been preparing. Patience shows up as wisdom. Restraint shows up as discernment. Faithfulness shows up as capacity. Nothing is accidental. Encouragement in the meantime reminds you that you are not wasting your life while you wait. You are becoming someone capable of sustaining what comes next. It also reminds you that responsibility and grace are not opposites. You can acknowledge where your own choices have contributed to delay without collapsing into self-blame. Growth involves ownership, not condemnation. Joseph's life did not move forward because he demanded fulfillment. It moved forward because he grew into it. The meantime is where that growth happens. Some days, encouragement looks like staying curious instead of critical. Other days, it looks like choosing compassion for yourself when progress feels slow. These are not small things. They are formative. Waiting teaches you how to stay human under pressure, how to keep your heart soft without losing discernment, how to remain hopeful without becoming unrealistic. These skills matter far beyond the waiting season itself. Scripture does not promise that waiting will be easy. It promises that it will be meaningful. That meaning unfolds slowly, often in ways you only recognize later. As you continue to wait, remember this. The dream is not fragile. It does not need constant defending. What needs tending is your inner life, your posture, your willingness to keep growing even when recognition is absent. The meantime is not a holding pattern. It is a shaping ground. Fulfillment does not erase the waiting. It reveals what the waiting has produced. And when it arrives, it often feels less like arrival and more like alignment. You are not late, forgotten, or standing still for no reason. You are learning how to wait without losing yourself. And that matters more than you know.